Welcome to Live Unashamed, where we pause the show and invite members of our team to talk vulnerably about their own recovery, things they're learning, the resources that are actually working, and what it truly means to live unashamed.
Hey, Steve.
Sam!
How you doing,
Good to see you, Sam. How you been?
Hey, guys.
Completing the three-peat of Live Unashamed episodes.
Yeah.
Featuring our friend, Sam.
How's it going?
Sam, if you were to have a sponsor on the show, we've had JCW's Cheese Fries sponsor us.
Mm-hmm.
We've had Liquid Death. Liquid Death. I should be a promoter for you. Send me an email and send me free cases of Liquid Death. I'll sell people.
We also had a Volvo sponsor.
Wow.
Yeah, a surprisingly fun car to drive.
Yeah.
Not just a soccer mom experience.
Right. Yeah.
We rented one once.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they didn't even pay us,
I
but
know.
they should.
Yep.
Sam,
We'll do something sporty. I think Wilson makes the best basketballs. No competition.
Wilson.
The Wilson
Yes.
Evolution is the best basketball I ever made.
I will not disagree with you. Well, I mean, I grew up on the Spalding 1000. You remember that?
No, those
thing?
were good. Those were good.
That's
Those
just
are good
throwback.
basketballs.
But those are like the Converse shoes
They don't
that
even-
aren't actually good, but everyone loves them.
They're
Well, they don't
super
even make them the
feel about
same
the
way
super
anymore. They
uncomfortable.
stopped
They're super
making those the
uncomfortable.
same way. It's like a
I
different
know
material.
it is. It's not the same. It's not the same as when I was young.
Back when I was
All right.
a kid.
Does grace have a place in recovery?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Duh. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's
it does,
audio,
yes.
Sam. It's
Yeah.
audio. You have
Audio,
to,
yeah.
Yeah.
They can't hear what I'm thinking in my
Can-
head.
Cannot.
yep.
They
Okay.
cannot. No.
Yeah, absolutely. That is the thing. That's the thing.
That's the thing.
The thing. Grace is the thing. It's the rocket booster engine. Well, this has been my thoughts lately.
I like that. So rocket
I'll get
booster
right
engine.
to it. I feel like it's the thing that changes behavior. That is a really interesting thought. But I have recently come to the conclusion that I no longer think it's just about like the nice idea of like Jesus like being merciful to us. I actually think it's the thing that changes your behavior.
So what is it when we say grace? What is it? Because you're talking about it like it's a pizza, it's the neighbor's dog. What is it?
What is grace?
Yes.
Oh, that's a good question.
Great. James will answer it.
Go, James.
James.
Do it up.
Yeah.
James,
all right,
James,
fine.
James,
all right,
James,
all right, I'm
James,
in.
James,
All right.
James.
I'm going to give it a whirl. I think, first of all, I just want to preface this by saying I think grace is bigger and more misunderstood or just
Misunderstood her, huh?
misunderstood or unknown than I think we could imagine. I think it's bigger than we could imagine, and it has more power than we can imagine. So I just want to preface it with that.
Well, I think there's the difference between like the mysteries of God and like it's this unknowable blob. I don't think grace is an unknowable blob. But
I
do
just think
it
it's
has
huge.
depth? Yeah,
and-
do I think it has depth in the mysteries of God that
Yeah,
we're not going to wrap it up in a 20-minute episode? Yeah,
Right.
of course.
yeah. And so it's like underestimated. And so when we talk about it, to me, it's like if we just try to talk about it in a definition, like so much depth is going to get lost in all of that. But if I were to say like, what is grace? Grace is that, here's what I know. From a felt experience of grace, here's what I know. Is that grace was the thing that created enough room in myself, I guess, to see myself as worth being sober and worth living and worth loving and worth changing and becoming a different person. And that's just a tiny part of that. And that grace then was the catalyst for me wanting to then not only change myself, but help and love those around me in a new and different and powerful way. And then, like, there are so many dominoes that fall when I have embraced grace in my life too. Things like scarcity get replaced by abundance. Judgment gets replaced by compassion and love. It is,
Yeah,
to me,
I
it's
get what you're saying.
huge. It's huge.
For me, I think, to put it simple, to me, what grace means is grace is where repair and redemption and wholeness, healed, not healing, healed, can happen that is beyond my capability. There are wrongs I do that I can just repair.
Sure.
So when I'm like, whatever, Jason, you suck, right? I can just be like, Jason, I'm sorry. I'm just pissed and jet lagged. I love you. I'm not saying that like God's light isn't in that, but there are things in my life that I'm like, I'm capable of cleaning this up.
Sure.
I'm capable of in my humanity and in being made in the image of God, in my spirit, I can make these connections. But I've got some parts of my story, as you both know, I am not redeeming that.
Yeah, on your own, no. Never. It's impossible. And we all have parts of that in all of our stories.
Sure. Even people who are betrayed spouses, even people who aren't even in recovery. Yes to all of that. But to me, to answer the question of this episode, does grace belong in recovery and what's the point? What I want to say is the experience I have of everyone in their shame and recovery, myself included, is I have become unredeemable. I have crossed a line that I can no longer make it back.
Yeah.
And grace is that gap filler.
Yeah.
No matter the gap of, here's the bridge from screwed where you are, that bridges that impossible chasm of making it back to whole.
Yeah.
To me, that's how I would describe grace.
Yeah.
And why it is recovery, to use what you said at the beginning of the episode, Sam.
And yet it's even bigger and beyond that.
Right, but grace in recovery. We were talking about grace in recovery.
And I'll talk about it then, though, from the betrayed spouse side.
Sure.
Grace is going to also fill in and heal what you can't heal over
right,
on
because
their
I can't
side
actually
either.
heal.
Yeah.
What I did to Kayla, I cannot heal.
So the
or
grace
mend.
is going to heal you and bridge
her.
you,
Yeah.
and it's going to bridge and heal her.
Agree. Yeah,
right?
100% agree.
So even for if you're not at fault, so to speak, it will also heal that too.
Yes. No, I agree with that. What I don't want to mistake is that grace is a hall pass, meaning you can be apathetic or whatever about recovery and the tab is covered.
Sure, and I think anybody that's ever truly tasted and encountered grace is not going to take it that way.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Right. I think that's a quick judgment that might get passed on of somebody who like thinks that somebody else is. I think that's coming from a non-grace place. We're going to pass judgment that that's how somebody else thinks.
Yeah,
right?
I just think there are people who use spiritual bypassing and God as a way to gaslight the crap out of their partner and pretend they're in recovery.
Yeah.
So that's what I want to hold space for.
Yeah.
So yes, I'm not talking about myself because that is not how I chose to gaslight, control, and manipulate. But I think that crap happens all the time.
So are you talking about like a behavior doesn't matter type of mentality?
Right.
Where I can excuse anything because God is so loving.
Right. Or saying to my spouse who wants to divorce me after the third affair and they're actually being boundaried. And they're like, hey, after affair number 2, like, if you have an affair again, I'm out on this marriage.
Sure.
And me being like, but if you actually believed in Jesus
and had grace,
and you had grace, then you know you're wrong and should stay with me. I'm talking about that crap because people use the spiritual thing. So I don't want some person quoting this episode to go gaslight someone. So that crap, I'm with you. It's not real grace, but I think that's how it gets misused.
Sure.
In
Excellent
recovery.
concept.
Absolutely.
Recovery.
Yeah.
And that's where I guess this is where I would make the connection. So I hold the belief that if you do not have connection to a higher power, that you will not recover, period.
Because that makes it difficult to tap into grace.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't make it difficult. You don't. Because I have to have this third party person who can magically fill that gap. I'm using the word magically not because I think Jesus is Santa Claus. I'm using the word to say that vast, that bigness you're talking about, that we can't explain it, but it just is.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I don't know how God did it because, like, I haven't gone back. and made repair with all those women who were prostituting themselves. I don't know what was actually going on in their lives and how they ended up in that room with me. I have not found them and made repair, but yet I feel repair and healing, and like God knows I'm really sorry, and do things in my life today to make that repair, to feel whole and have wholeness around that, even though the truth is I haven't done nearly sufficient enough to really make repair, and never will, and it's impossible for me to.
Yeah.
That being filled, right? And so I guess that's where I'd say, like, if you don't have that gap fill, I don't think you're going anywhere in recovery.
Yeah.
At least let me live unashamed here. I move nowhere in my healing and recovery if it's not in concert or in relationship with grace.
Yes.
Yeah.
So to sum up, to answer the question, does grace belong in recovery? Absolutely. It's critical. Recovery doesn't happen without it.
I think it's what Sam said. Grace is
It is recovery.
Grace is recovery.
Yeah.
I'm gonna take the opportunity here to go somewhere in recovery that I have a lot of feelings around, because I think that we have moved as a culture to ultra over accepting of everything and everyone all the time.
Mm-hmm.
That whatever anyone says is their experience, we honor and hold true, and there are people who need advocacy for.
Mm-hmm.
From minorities, people who have harmed, LGBT community. Like, there are people that I'm like, no, there's bad things happening and advocacy needs to happen. Women, to be like there are people that I'm like, no, you have been mistreated, and there's restitution and things that need to happen here, right? But outside of that, I feel like we want to say that anything and anything can be anything, and that grace is provided anywhere by whatever. And I just want to take the stance in my own truth of there is one source of grace, the Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. And as people go into recovery and they want to do the other things, which I'm fine with. I do hot yoga. I've done energy work. I'm not saying stuff like that can't be part of my healing process. Grace comes from a single source,
Mm-hmm.
because nothing else and no one else makes the promise of that grace.
Mm-hmm.
So I just think there's so many people that don't want to reconcile their relationship with God, or they don't want to look at that part, and they want to do everything else for recovery other than reconcile the truth of there is only one person who offers grace, the way we're defining it in this episode.
What's coming up for me as you say that is that you can access grace to the extent that you align yourself with true principles. It's really important to understand,
Yes.
right? A lot of people who have the
Well,
perfectionist...
true principles around who delivers it.
Yes. And if you... A lot of people, like, I see this coming up for me, so I'll just talk in the eye. I see myself thinking, okay, well, I need to align myself with true principles then, and I'm not aligning myself with true principles because of my bad behavior, therefore I'm not worthy of grace. That's not how it works. Right? Aligning yourself with true principles, that has to do with the things that you believe and how that changes your view of yourself, right? And over time, the action comes later on.
But I got to say, and I just got to say this, like, yes, the orthodoxy of what you're saying, yes, I believe in. But at the same time, I believe Jesus himself would say, how you go about it matters.
Yeah.
100%.
Because if we swing to orthodoxy first, so if I've got a listener out there that's like, no, I've got a lot of hurt around church and Jesus, us just saying that to them isn't going to help. What's gonna help is the way that we accept and love them in grace where they're at in their journey. So if right now all they can take grace from is the concept of love and Mother Nature, and I know you're critical of that.
I know what you're saying, but here's what I'm saying is, but then people say, then I'm just going to go on a hike and I never have to reconcile my church hurt. I'm not saying you have to go back to the church you were raised in. I'm not saying you have to go to church with me. But the fact that you're going to just ignore that you have a bunch of God hurt, church hurt, parent hurt, father, mother wounding hurt.
I'm not advocating burying your head in the sand.
But people use the words you just said to go bury their head in the sand.
Which words?
Oh, I don't look at it that way. I look at it different. So I go walk in nature, and that's how I do God. I love nature. Chris loves nature. I'm down with the nature thing.
Right.
And nature's going to lead you. If you're out there listening to the breeze through the trees and actually watching that sunset, it's going to lead you to reconciling your relationship with God in true principles, to what Sam's saying, of who he actually is. So it's not me trying to point the finger of judgment of everyone and saying, you need to be orthodox, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's me saying, and that's what, and Jeremy just texted it to us, right? You know, he said, grace doesn't mean you won't make mistakes. Grace means you just won't be defined by them. From Greg Boyle, Tattoos on the Heart. And so to me, that's the part of like, you have to be in relationship with somebody who can, in grace, say, Sam, your mistakes don't define you. Steve, your mistakes don't define you. James, your mistakes don't define you. Now, I think, is Jesus going to reach you through nature if that's the only way you're going to see him right now? Yes, but make no mistake, you're going to need to reconcile that relationship.
At some point, yeah.
At some point, yes.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm like, in God's grace, if that's the only place you can take him, is like, I can only accept God in the form of like Mother Nature, because all other damage is done there. For now, I think God will work with that in you, in his grace.
Yes, but it's not the end.
Correct.
That's all I'm saying.
And all I'm saying is that the approach matters.
Agree, 100%. Because the approach has to be relational and real for you.
Yes.
100%. So what I would like to know, right, is how have what I would, put to the three of us, and we're at time on the episode, but, want to hear from outsiders. We can post some stuff on social media, but how has the approach actually worked for you? That's the email. Send me an email. I would love to know. Stephen, James at unashamedunafraid.com. How has the approach actually worked for you? Because I agree, it's going to be personal. So I'm fine if it doesn't happen in the church that I, Stephen Shields, go to the way I think it should happen. I'm fine, of course. A lot of stuff happens for me that has not happened in church, right? Mm-hmm. So to me, it's making the connection that I want to challenge all of us is, what is that actual path of being in relationship and taking those steps to receive grace? Final word, Sam.
I think at the end of the day, it is about aligning yourself with true principles. The closer you align yourself to true principles, or I should say, the closer I align myself with true principles, the closer I feel the effect of grace in my life. And what that looks like specifically is it changes the way that I believe about myself, and everything becomes more clear because of that.
Mm-hmm. And to add on that, I think
he was the last word. You don't get to add on.
Oh, he was the last. I thought we all got a last word.
No, he's the last word. We're out of time.
Great. Thanks, Sam.
Follow us at Unashamed and Afraid. We love you. Want to hear from you. And if you want to hear what James had to say, tune into the next episode. Follow us on social media at Unashamed and Afraid. And until we can meet again, continue to be
unashamed.